Labor love. I think that's the last time we're playing that one because I know my sister Chanel have a new tune coming out. You hear it yet? You hear it yet? It's coming, it's coming. I want to greet everyone here with labor love. Thank all of my comrades and friends for coming out and recognize my brothers on the platform tonight. I know there's always a debate about whose constituency is the prettiest and whose constituency is the best. I always like to answer those things with data. The largest constituency in the country is East St. George. The country with the largest migration internally is East St. George. The constituency where the most people move to every year is East St. George. So people voting with their feet already. The people of St. Vincent have determined that the best constituency is East St. George. I am honored to be given this opportunity to speak to you today. Whether you're watching online, on television, listening on the radio, this is a unique campaign that we're getting into here. We're on the marks, but it's a new mark. And it's proceeding under unique circumstances and constraints. And I confess that I miss the energy of the rallies and the warmth and the love that washes over you when you stand up on a stage full of thousands of labor supporters. But I recognize as well that our General Secretary is the most ingenious and creative General Secretary in the region and has created the best substitute for that environment. Because this is not a mass meeting, but rather a more personal experience, I'm going to speak to you as plainly as I can. I'm going to tell you that this election is about a lot of fundamental issues. It's about a young man near the Calico Town Hall who dreamt of being a chef but couldn't round up the money to get started. Today, thanks to Prime, he has a stove, he has a fridge, he has pots and pans, he has utensils, and he's serving some of the best Ital food in the country from that restaurant. It's about a young woman in Brighton who was sewing clothes in her house on a dilapidated sewing machine. But again, thanks to Prime, has a new sewing machine, new materials, and new energy about her job and her talents and her skills. It's about two partners in Glen who launched their hair salon and barber shop with a Prime grant to buy barber chairs, shampoo chairs, and all the necessary equipment and supplies. This election is about a tennis prodigy from Fair Hall and a football phenom from Calico, both attending university and developing their talents in the United States, thanks to government assistance. It's about record numbers of university scholarships, record levels of community college and UE enrollment, and record numbers taking advantage of the YES and the SET program. This election is about a COVID pandemic that brought the entire world to a standstill and is causing economies around the globe to grind to a halt, while the ULP keeps us safe, keeps us open, keeps the economy afloat, and directly touches over 15,000 Vincentians with income support, from hospitality workers to minibus operators to cruise ship workers to vendors to handcart operators to vulnerable citizens. My comrade Saboto told me that just this week, the first 3 days of this week, 2,358 farmers received the initial drought and COVID support payment of $500. So we spent $1.2 million in the first 3 days of this week to those 2,400 farmers. And in the coming days, another 1,600 farmers, Sabi tells me, will also receive their initial payment. Just progress. It's progress. This election is about so much more. Who has a plan to make the AIA work and attract more hotels and jobs to St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Who has a plan to expand the fisheries sector and employ more fisherfolk? Who has a plan to further develop our call centers and employ hundreds more young people? Who has the plans to develop a modern port and a modern referral hospital? Who has a credible plan to combat climate change? Who has a plan to make St. Vincent and the Grenadines a credible, respected, and influential voice on the global stage? And who is taking principled stands on a host of crucial issues, from reparatory justice to non-interference in sovereign affairs, to whether or not we have the right to pretend that the 24 million residents and citizens of Taiwan do not exist. On all these issues and more, it is clear that the party of choice, the party of principle, the party of plans is the Unity Labour Party. I hope to have an opportunity over the course of the campaign to address all those issues and more in great detail. But I want to speak a bit more about another issue that this election is about. This election is about your passport and what it means to be a citizen of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I'm glad that Comrade Carlos led off with that in his speech. Your passport is more than a collection of pages and some ink. It is, to quote our comrade leader, the outward sign of the inward grace of citizenship. It is a sacrament of our citizenship, and it can never be a commodity for sale. Young people say, "Me nah sell out my friend them." And they're right. Some things cannot be bartered or sold for 30 pieces of silver. Your God, your family, your principles, and your country. This nation, called St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is not simply a collection of islands, rocks, and keys. It is not just trees and rivers or mountains and beaches. This nation is our shared history of struggle and triumph. This nation is our shared culture, from what we eat to how we talk or dress or celebrate, to our common rituals and touchstones. This nation is common experiences, common vulnerabilities, shared fears and aspirations. This nation called St. Vincent and the Grenadines is its people, all of us, living and loving and striving together for our shared progress. The precise definition of who or what the essence of our nationhood is elusive, but who feels it knows it. When Fire Empress sings that she's a true Vincy, we know what she means. And when Skinny proclaims that this island is mine, we understand and we share the source of his pride. From Beckett's unabashed love, St. Vincent, I love you, to Skakes and his pure delight that our nation was born, we have always known that we belong to a special and uniquely blessed family. That sense of belonging, that sense of pride, that sense of ownership of our history and our destiny is indescribable, but it is also priceless. Citizenship is the highest honor in our land, and it is an honor that is not for sale. I don't have to list all of the international criminals, fugitives, and terrorists that have been captured around the world carrying other islands' passports. I don't have to regale you with the tales of corruption and theft surrounding passport schemes around the world. And I certainly hope that I don't have to remind you of the fact that multiple NDP campaigns, from their cynical vote no campaign to the last 3 election campaigns, have been bought and paid for by foreigners who have been promised the profits of your battered birthright. Those are the facts. They want to blind you to those facts with promises of milk and honey. The answer to every question is sell passports. Roads, sell passports. Jobs, sell passports. COVID, sell passports. It is a lazy, unimaginative, and baseless mantra masquerading as a plan. It also ignores a few inconvenient truths. When they tell you how passport money turned other islands into debt-free paradises, they neglect to tell you that some passport sellers are having trouble paying salaries right now. It's in the news if you choose to read it. It's not the first time that the mighty passport sellers have been unable to meet their monthly obligations either. They ignore how almost all of them are incurring more debt and floating more bonds than we are, and borrowing at less favorable rates too. They sidestep the issue of how almost all of them, in spite of their passport profits, had to go cap in hand to the International Monetary Fund to request an economic bailout, something that we in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have never been forced to do. And they do not tell you about the facts that some of these passport sellers are millions of dollars behind in their NIS, their payments to UE, and their debts to local banks. And they borrow money from us too, but that's another story for another time. In our region, multiple banks have refused to touch passport money, terminating CBI ties and dropping passport business from their portfolios. The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean says that passport selling contributes to countries' reputational risk, which leads to the loss of correspondent banking relations. What does that mean for you? It means trouble moving money in and out of your country. It means trouble getting Western Union and MoneyGram. It means trouble attracting reputable foreign direct investment. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, closer to home, has said that reliance on passport selling is of concern. That's how they put it. It's of concern. Due not only to the fact that everybody's trying to sell it cheaper than the next one, but because, and I'm quoting them, increasing security concerns may cause countries to reconsider the visa-free travel of citizens from CBI countries. So the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is saying, this thing is concerning because you're selling your passport on the basis that you could go visa-free elsewhere. But those countries might pull the plug on you. And then what do you have to sell? The IMF calls passport selling programs and their inflows, they call it one word, volatile. But what does volatile mean? The definition is liable to change rapidly and unpredictably, especially for the worse. And it says that the passport selling is subject to sudden stop risk. And what does that mean? It means that it could be cut off at any time. The IMF also says that those eating at the passport money trough may not care about prudent investment. And that, I'm quoting them again, investments undertaken using CBI funds may face sustainability issues because one may expand hotel capacity beyond market potential or build lower quality facilities. If you scratch the surface of the NDP's passport paradises, you will see ghost towns of dilapidated buildings built by unscrupulous hit-and-run investors. Further, and I'm going to dwell on it because it's important, and it's a matter that we have to decide in this election. The European Union and the OECD are tightening the screws on passport selling programs. They have already said they will attack it as a vehicle for tax avoidance and criminality. 2 weeks ago, look it up, September 16th, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, said this, and I'm going to quote her because this is 2 weeks ago. Violations of the rule of law through the issuance of golden passports, and that's what they call passport selling up there, will not be tolerated. She goes on to say that the European Commission, and I'm quoting her again, will defend the integrity of our European institutions, whether it is about the primacy of European law, the freedom of the press, the independence of the judiciary, or the sale of golden passports. European values are not for sale. That's what she said. So why should our values be for sale? If the EU could bring the region's offshore financial sector to its knees, and they have, imagine what they could do as they gradually tighten their focus on the relatively small number of passport sellers. Imagine this also. Why would anyone buy our passport over another island? And Carlos hinted at it. Would they buy our passport because it has a longer history? Or because they like the color? Or maybe because they think Leacock is a more trustworthy passport salesman than those in other islands? No. They will buy it because it is cheaper or because it is less regulated. That is how you break into a market like this one. By being cheaper, quicker, or easier. Now, if you've been paying attention, you know that the race to the bottom has begun with the passport selling countries. They're having 2-for-1 sales. They're having family sales. They're having buy the daddy and get the wife and the children free. And as the new kids on the block, we would have to follow suit. Yes, they're having COVID sales too. Cheaper, quicker, easier. Is that what you want your citizenship to be? The foreigners will buy it, but you will pay for it. You will pay for it in reputation. You'll pay for it in trouble moving your money, in trouble doing business, in difficulty traveling around the world. You will pay for it with the gnawing shame in your belly that you have sold your patrimony for 30 pieces of silver. In this very uncertain period, now is not the time to hitch our development wagon to something that is volatile, to something that will stop soon, to something that breeds corruption, to something that is getting cheaper by the minute, and to something that the Europeans say will not be tolerated going forward. Least of all, now is not the time to entrust your citizenship to a man who has a backup when he trashes your Vincentian passport. A man who proudly says that he carries his Canadian passport in his front pocket and brags that it makes him doubly qualified to be the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Can you imagine that? No. Talking about selling passports in this country is the talk of a party that is bereft of ideas. They're trying to scribble and copy yesterday's ideas to solve tomorrow's problems. If you have 20 years to come up with a plan, and that plan becomes simply sell passports, you ain't ready to govern St. Vincent. Now You see, the NDP is a party of cash grabs. China is a cash grab. Passports is a cash grab. Toll booth on Sion Hill is a cash grab. The ULP, on the other hand, has detailed, actual, implementable plans. And we have a record of bringing those plans to fruition. And when I talk about plans, I'm not talking about a meme on Facebook. I'm talking about plans that we have thought through, that we have analyzed, that we have funded, and that are underway as we speak in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have a plan to make the AIA work through the creation of new hotels. We have a plan to improve our competitiveness and efficiency through the construction of a modern port. We have a plan to expand the blue economy with fishery centers. We have a plan to create jobs in hospitality, construction, logistics, ICT, agriculture, fisheries, medicinal cannabis, professional services, healthcare. We have a plan, it's being implemented to bring Sandals Beaches Resort, the Holiday Inn Express, the Marriott Resorts, the Royal Mill Hotel. Look, in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we've never had hotels like that come into mainland St. Vincent. And it's because we have a plan. We have a plan to grow our economy without selling our passports and our patrimony. We have a plan to make us more resilient to climate change. Look around at the river defense and the sea defense all over this country. And we have a plan to continue improving our healthcare with a modern Louis Punnett home in Glen and an acute referral hospital in Annesville. By the way, have you noticed the NDP's silence on the hospital issue? Last election, you remember the infamous Farmville Hospital. Not only do you remember the infamous Farmville Hospital, you remember them saying on the radio that they were going to build the hospital in East St. George. You remember that? But I read some reports from the NDP candidate for East St. George this time around, where she detailed her plans for the constituency. And nowhere was the issue of a major hospital mentioned. No, she talked about upgrading a couple clinics. But somehow, the issue of an entire hospital that was promised from 5 years ago has fallen quietly by the wayside. Has the NDP abandoned or relocated its supposedly firm and well thought out hospital plans? Maybe they were going to build it on the land now occupied by the Royal Mill Hotel, or Rainforest Seafood Plant, or the Choppins Hard Court, or the Brighton Football Facility, or the temporary Parliament and Student Hostel. Maybe we have already used up all the land with the development plans that we were doing. Or maybe it's just part of the usual chaotic policy raffle that they play with you. Austerity this week, no mention of austerity next week. Dolphin prison this week, oops, wasn't my idea next week. Switching to China this week, well, we'll think about it some more next week. Lock them out for COVID this week, let them in with COVID next week. Yellow Army this week, all white party next week.
Come and tell him, own your madness, where you're running for, own your madness.
And we didn't have carnival this year, and I miss a white fete. I miss all white fete, so I don't mind a glow party. Even with Prime, a program that has already benefited over 800 entrepreneurs and small businesses this year alone, the other party is conflicted and confused. Some of their candidates call it reckless, while others promote it and distribute flyers and application forms. I saw a picture last week of a recent NDP youth meeting, and I played a fun little game with myself of how many of the people in their yellow shirts on that platform had applied for and received prime grants over the last 2 months. And more power to them, more power to them. We in the ULP are grounded in a shared philosophy, a common vision, and we have one leader. I notice the other party, they have an official leader, they have a titular leader, they have an ancestral leader, they have a wannabe leader, they have an aspiring leader, they have a de facto leader. But we have one leader, and we follow one philosophy. So there's a coherence to our policies that you all understand. So our policies and their positive outcomes are clear and consistent and beneficial to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So, Chairman, I have the signal honor and the privilege to represent the great people of East St. George. And I could not be prouder or more humbled by the responsibility and the opportunity to serve. The ULP has done great, great things in East St. George during my first term in office, even with more great things in store for my next term. East St. George is rapidly transforming for the better. And permit me to remind you of a few of our accomplishments. You know, like James E.P. say, I feel like beat my chest. I feel like beat my chest. We built a top-class temporary school and are building a completely refurbished and expanded Calico Anglican school. And when people said that board school ain't gonna make it, Calico Anglican School recorded this year 100% passes in their CPA exam. We opened a top-class modern Calico Town Hall, best in the country. We constructed multiple lives-to-live homes in Enhams, Glen, Brighton, Junction, and other places. We stopped sand mining in Brighton. We cleaned up Canash Beach. We built a new Brighton tourism facility. We upgraded the Glen and Calico hard courts and built a whole new hard court in Choppins. We upgraded the lights at the Calico playing field, expanded the bleachers, added a washroom, refenced the whole facility. We constructed footbridges in Brighton, in Diamond, in Calico, 4 footbridges. And footbridges are important in that case because each one of those 4 footbridges leads to a school. And little children were crossing rivers, and now they're all safe and secure going to and from their school. We built new roads, and I'm talking about resurfaced roads, brand new roads where roads didn't exist, in Revere and in Diamond and in Brighton Salt Pond, and we're continuing to repair roads throughout the constituency even as we speak. We completed paved footpaths and steps in Glen, Brighton, Southwood, Choppins, Fairburn, and other areas of the constituency, with more to come. We partnered with the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Football Federation to rehabilitate the Brighton football field. And we welcomed and equipped a talented new team of brilliant young panists in the Epic Sounds Steel Orchestra. And that's just a few of the accomplishments of the government. The private sector of East St. George is more vibrant than ever before. In the last 5 years, we welcome OSV, One St. Vincent Group, SVG Foods, new restaurants in the constituency. Hundreds of rooms of new apartments have been built, mainly to service the growing medical school community, but also for locals. We have new restaurants, new grocery stores, a new auto parts store, and on the top of the hill, in Ratamill overlooking Calico, we have the Royal Mill Hotel, over $70 million facility. It's going to be the tallest building by far ever in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have Maya's Luxury Suites built by a local hotelier. That's going very well. We have Rainforest Seafood in Calico being built. That's going to spend $20 million every year buying fish from the local fisher folk of the area. Those three alone is over $200 million in construction and over 500 workers from the area. And give me a chance, Julian, I hope you give me a chance in the next meeting to detail the length and breadth of the job plans of the Unity Labour Party. I feel like in the next term, this ULP government will, and I'm just talking about East St. George, will rebuild a modern Louis Punnett home. We will construct a temporary parliament that will become student dormitories for the community college. We will build a Golden Years activity center for our active elderly in East St. George. We will develop enhanced coastal and river protection. We will ensure improved community centers and offerings. We will construct a non-communicable diseases wellness center at Enhams. We will extend and repair the Villa Boardwalk and construct a tourism facility there. We will expand our existing program of road repair and construction, and we'll create more affordable housing options for our young and fast-growing constituency. I have printed a 40-odd page booklet that is called East St. George, Building Together with Labour. And I will be distributing to constituents all over East St. George this booklet in the coming weeks. It will show, in brief, what we have done, what we plan to do to make East St. George the best place to work, live, and raise a family anywhere in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I have abused Chairman's patience a little bit today, and I won't trespass any longer on Luke's time. But I want to say finally, to the people of Fairhall, Fairburn, Carapan, Glamorgan, Rivulet, Southwood, Enhams, McCarthy, Revere, Calder Ridge, Belmont, Belvedere, Brighton, Harmony Hall, Prospect. You see villages in his constituency? Ratto Mill, Calico, Glen, Goldenville, Choppins, Diamond. Let me steal a phrase from Carlos. If you remember nothing else from this speech, remember this. We have a choice in this election between progress and backwardness. We have a duty to protect our patrimony and the essence of what it means to be a citizen of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have an obligation to tell the NDP loudly, unequivocally, with no water in our mouth, that our passports will never, ever be for sale. Let us renew the mandate for progress. Let us reward the comrade for his yeoman service in the vineyard. Let us accelerate the transformation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Let us lift SVG higher. Comrades and friends, thank you, good night, and may Almighty God continue to bless St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am a son to send the NDP mad. Tell them labor only with blood, labor only with soul. Talk if you want, I don't care, cause labor is control. Bring me there,